Good evening. I am Oscar Camargo. I'll be presenting an affirmative rebuttal defending my resolution that the United States federal government should increase its development of the Earth's moon in one or more of the following areas: energy, minerals, and or water. So in other words, this means that I'm encouraging the United States federal government to extract resources that are plentiful on the moon and scarce here on Earth. After providing my initial affirmative argument, my opposition provided a negative constructive video that negated some of my ideas. My opposition argued that the development is too slow, that it's too expensive, and that it's conflicting, basically that it'll cause conflict. We will commence with the first negative point made against my proposition that extracting resources would someday lead to the United States federal government being able to terraform the moon, which would transform the environment to one in which humans could survive in case of a catastrophe on Earth. As I mentioned earlier, my opposition argued that this process would be too slow. However, my intended argument was that after the United States federal government began extracting minerals from the moon, they would obviously gain insight on the functionality of the moon, which would make great strides on their ability to gain knowledge on how to terraform the moon. So Gregory Benford, professor of physics and astronomy at UCI, states that with our current technology, a trip to the moon only takes about 3 days, thus making the initial transport of necessary equipment fairly easy to transport. Also, the size of the moon. The size of the moon would not make it incredibly difficult to terraform, since only about a quarter of the size. The moon is only a quarter of the size of the Earth. The biggest point in this category is that being able to terraform the moon isn't my main resolution that I'm focusing on in this debate. Instead, it's only a benefit of my primary resolution, which is, of course, for the United States federal government to extract resources from the moon. Okay, on to the next point, which is that the process is too slow. Actually, it's about the costs. This is according to space.com. There's a new technology out, which is known as microwave technology. This technology basically provided NASA with the ability to vaporize ice, collect it as gas, and bring it to Earth in that form. What this does is it saves a lot of money, which would be put towards melting the ice. So instead of drilling the ice and melting it and bringing it back, we can vaporize it and just bring it back as gas, which would save a lot of space and time and all that money. Another point that can be emphasized is that microwave technology is only in its infancy, and that support from our federal government will assure great advancements can be made in this technology and other technologies similar to it. An additional point that can be emphasized is the fact that private companies actually will aid NASA in the entire process. Currently, NASA has a budget a little under 18 billion, but companies see extracting resources from the moon as an opportunity to revolutionize the energy industry and change the dependency of oil companies into a preference for the potentially cheap and plentiful clean energy. Alright. So physics.org also states the following quote: unlike NASA's contracts with SpaceX and Orbital Sciences to deliver cargo into the ISS, the moon proposal, dubbed Catalyst, which stands for Cargo Transportation and Landing by Soft Touchdown, would get no U.S. government economic help. So it states here that the United States federal government isn't providing the funds needed for this catalyst, which is sending all the equipment we need for the process. Okay, and the last point made is about conflict. Okay, and I quote this as well: "There's a strong case for developing international law in this area because in 1967 it was not it was not a primary focus that we would want to extract anything from the moon. And this is a quote from Ian Crawford, a planetary science professor. Clearly, things are changing now, and developing outer space is one of our biggest initiatives. The 1967 treaty also states that nobody can own the moon. However, it doesn't prohibit usage of the resources present on the moon. And conflict is actually inevitable, whether we start a conflict on the moon for its resources or on Earth for the scarce resources. There will always be potential for conflict among nations. It's important that we take initiative and take the risk that will grant our nation many benefits. Hopefully this clarifies any points or any negative points that my opposition made, and provides enough detail to convince the audience to have the United States federal government extract resources from the moon.